Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. We have a special show tonight. We have a brand new guest on here. His name is Bill Crawford, and we're going to be talking some Army Navy football. But before I go out there and do that, we have a big agenda. Well, kind of. Anyways, we're going to talk about the college football playoff, and we're going to talk to the NFL game you're looking forward to. But before I go into the show, why don't we go out there and let Bill Crawford give a basic introduction about what he's doing? Go ahead, Bill. Floor is
Well,
yours.
a basic introduction is good. My name is Bill Crawford. I'm a West Point grad, 1980. My nickname is Crawdad. It has been all my life. I do a ESPN. By the way, I'm a federal employee. I do an ESPN radio show on the side called Crawdad's Countdown to Kickoff. Been doing it for 14 years. Our whole purpose of this show is to promote Army football. I do it for free. I don't take a salary. I'm a great Army fan, love it to death. And we have a Facebook page, Crawdad's Countdown to Kickoff. We have about 6,000 followers. And again, we've been doing it for 14 years. Last year, even though I don't take a salary, got a little recognition as the only member of the media to be invited to the White House for the Commander-in-Chief's celebration. So that was pretty cool. That was regardless of what you think about who's in the White House, when you get called to the White House, you go. And that was a great honor. And I love what I do on the side. My co-host is Steve Cripe. He's a 1984 West Point grad. And this year, my son, Barrett Crawford, who graduated from West Point in 2015, is now one of my co-hosts on the show also. He lives in Huntsville, Alabama. So I know Coach Bono, Coach Joe Ross, one of my good friends, and love talking Army football, man. I used to talk Army football in the sports bar with chicken wings and beer, and now I do it on the radio. So you can't beat that.
Great stuff. Well, we have an all-star crew tonight, and I'll introduce them as we speak. Steve Ballesteri comes on tonight. Thanks for coming on, Steve.
Thanks for having me. It's great that we don't have any Navy people on here tonight.
I agree.
We have to have some class here tonight, so it's like an Army affair.
Absolutely.
And, that's what this show's all about, right?
I'm for my Army stuff.
And I want to just mention, Bill made a good comment, no matter who's in the White House, and that was a old Army tradition, right? You respect the rank, not necessarily the man.
I'm wearing an Army hoodie right now. My dad served in the Army for a while, so obviously I have allegiances there. All right, well, Mel is next one there. Of course, you see the green beret. I see it. As bad as my eyes may be through the computer, I still see it. Mel, well, here you go. You're on one of our biggest shows of the year.
Bill, welcome. We appreciate you taking time to visit with us, and we look forward to having a great show.
And, of course, Travis Holmes is on. Of course, they have a new coach at Central Florida, or a new but old coach, Scott Frost. Have to mention that. With all these guys beating me up in the chat room if I don't mention it. Welcome back, Travis.
Hey, man, as always, thank you for having me. Let's get down to it.
All right, and we'll do that with Coach Bono.
Great to be here, Scott. Welcome, Bill. Good to have a West Pointer here on the show today.
Hey, give the place a little class, right?
Yes, yeah, gives it a dimension for sure. Well, it's no secret it's Army Navy week. Army is 11-1. Their only loss happened to be to Notre Dame against Navy 8-3. And 6.5 point spread here. I wonder if anybody actually believes that that's the point spread we're going to have. Steve, what are your thoughts about the point spread? High, low?
It's Army Navy. You can throw out the records right out the window. The games are always hard fought. I think this year Army's going to push that point spread up a little bit. I think they win by more than that.
What do you think, Mel?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those rivalry games, so all that stuff doesn't even matter. Watch this game, and I've enjoyed watching this game for years. Only game that's on TV. A lot of meaning behind the game. Giving up a lot.
Your mic isn't doing us any favors, Mel.
I don't know what's wrong with it today.
I don't know either.
Let me check something. It's going in and out.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
in and out.
Well, I didn't take sign language, Mel, so I'll come back.
All right.
I'll come.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's
Is
much
that
better.
better?
Leave it where it's at.
That
Okay,
is.
go
All right.
ahead.
All right. So I've always watched this game. I've always loved watching this game. Even since I was a little kid, you can throw the records out the window. Doesn't matter. The point spread really doesn't matter. Yeah, Army's had a phenomenal year this year with only one loss. So you probably want to give them a little bit of the edge, a little edge. But when it comes to rivalry games, they know each other very well, and it should make for an exciting football game. I'm looking forward to watching it.
Travis, points per do this 6.5 any justice?
I mean, that's going to be real interesting because again, to everyone else's points, I mean, I'm in a room full of ball knowers. Like you already know. Whenever you get these games it's like a divisional game at this point. Like it's like you're playing against the people who know you best. So where we can say this should be a blowout, we know it feels like it should be, but at the same time, hey, Navy has had a really good season, and Army has had not the greatest, but they've also still beat some. They've won some solid games. They've also blown some teams out. So it's kind of one of those situations where it feels like it could be a trap. I hope. I hope they come out. I hope Navy comes out and does what they're supposed to do. But on the off chance they don't, hey man, it's gonna be a good game to watch.
Coach, point spread, high, low, medium.
I don't think my experience. Look, I coached in 6 of these. Right, won 5 of them, and I can honestly say that in my entire career, and that includes the NFL, and having had the privilege to be a head coach at my alma mater, it's my most favorite tradition. It's the memories that I hang on to the most. It was absolutely my favorite spot of everywhere that I've been, and there's no game that I've coached in that meant more. Period. And you guys are all right when you say these teams know each other, because they know each other more than just from schematically. They're essentially living mirror lives, right? I mean, you got one team they're preparing to be military officers. The other side is preparing to be naval officers. It's a fierce rivalry, but it is one that's it's a rivalry born out of respect. I think that the mission and who they serve is the same. It's one country, our country, and our freedoms and our national security. So the game, it's impossible to put a point spread on this. I really do. I will expect it to be like every other Army Navy game, to be full of back and forth, to be to be close, and whoever makes the fewest amount of mistakes is going to come out winning that game. And I can't wait to watch it. Army's had a fantastic season, but I know that coaching staff and everybody's there. They're probably puckered up, because as everything that they've accomplished with 11 wins, only lost to Notre Dame, winning a conference championship. I think to not beat Navy takes a lot of shine off of those accomplishments. So I don't care how much they win by. I just want them to win.
Okay.
And it's the only rivalry in all of college sports, college football, where for the seniors, now this is the end all be all, right? You're a senior at the Naval Academy, the West Point, you have to beat the rival academy in your final game. But it's the only one where after the game is over, all of the seniors now become teammates because they're entering the military. And so that adds a little. I mean, they'll continue to talk smack to each other, and that never stops. But it's the only rivalry for the seniors where, they become teammates after the game's over.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring. A lot of different things in this game that you normally don't see anywhere else. I'll mention a couple, and Bill, I'll ask you about the point spread. I have a couple notes, and I'm going to format this show much differently since we have more people on. I won't be asking all the questions. I'm going to let the crew ask you the questions. But first of all, before I do so, Bill, the point spread 6.5. Is that high, low?
Well, first of all, before I address the point spread, Coach Bono, Joe Ross, just texted me and said, he said, hello to my old fullbacks coach and my special teams coach. I love Coach Bono. So Joe Ross is listening in tonight. And I'll tell you about the point spread, Scott. I think this, you're not going to believe this because I'm the ultimate Army fan, but let's forget about the wonder of the game and all that stuff that goes on with it. Let's talk football. Football is this. Navy's had 2 weeks to press up, to rest. Army has had to play a very emotional championship game last week. They've got some injuries. Navy's quarterback Horvath may or may not play. This game, the point spread that's really more important in this game is the over-under. I haven't seen that yet, but it's going to go under no matter what it is. And I tend to think, as always is the case, the point spread of 6.5 for Navy is, if I was a betting man, I'd take Navy. I think Army's going to win, but I think it's going to be an extremely close game, just like it always is. So that's my point. Now, obviously, do I hope that doesn't happen? Actually, I don't really care. I like to see this game come. I like to see it, last year, double overtime. Awesome. Goal line stand. I hate it for my heart because I almost fall over dead every time I watch this game. But I think it's going to be close, and I think Navy 6.5 is a good bet.
Okay, a couple facts I want to incorporate. Actually, yesterday, Content God's been good to us for this show for some reason or another. But CBS has inked a 10-year contract extension to keep the game. So CBS was a partner of the game for the next 10 years. And also today I read that Army assistant Matt Dinkel has been named the new head coach at Central Michigan. Coach Bono knows it all too well because he coached at Central Michigan. You're the head coach. So there's a little bit of, so you're going to lose a coach after this game, but he's going to be going to Coach Bono's territory. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm that's a concern for me for Army going into the game, and here's why. When you have when you have a coach leave a staff to take another job, first of all, everybody's, I guarantee you, everyone on campus, everybody over there on the banks of the Hudson is happy for him and excited for him. But you just, and Bill brought up a great point about it being a short week. You lose your offensive line coach. I mean, I think he was at his introductory press conference today up in Mount Pleasant. I don't know. I would imagine there's probably, with Coach Monken's permission, there's probably a couple coaches on that staff that are, currently in maybe staff positions that are, lower positions that he may be bringing with him. And, not that it would affect the game plan or the preparation, but it is a distraction, and it's one that's hard to combat. Honestly, I just, in the back of my mind, and I want to speak it out of existence. That's kind of why I want to bring it up. But I just hope that that's not a distraction in any way, shape, or form for those players, as position players, who are going to be absolutely ecstatic that he's getting a head coaching opportunity. But probably sad to see him leave a little bit.
Well, Coach Bono, as Lee Corso would say, not so fast. I interviewed Coach Drinkall on my show earlier this year, and we had an extensive talk about, how they're doing and what the coaching cohesion is like up there. And Coach Mike Vitti, who is the assistant head coach, was the head coach of the offensive line last year. And Coach Vitti, as Drinkall said, hey, whatever I can't do, Coach Vitti does. I personally don't think they're going to miss a beat. I think they're going to say, hey, Coach, good Godspeed, go on your merry way. And Mike Vitti will fill in the blanks. It's not going to be a problem. And, by the way, our offensive line, think about these three teams: Oregon, Texas, Oregon, Texas, Army. You know what those three have in common? They are the finalists for the Joe Moore Award this year. So Army's line is cohesive. They're great. They're going to do a very good job. And everybody likes Coach Drinkall. I met him when I was at the White House, an awesome guy. And we're going to miss him, but Godspeed. Mike Vitti will fill in the blanks. And I'm not trying to shut you down by any stretch of the imagination. Just have a little inside knowledge there. And I think we're going to be just fine.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad. I'm relieved.
I'm going to mention a couple of names here that have been a part of this rivalry. Then, Steve, I'm going to turn over to you. You'll ask Bill questions, and I'll go around the horn with everybody else doing it. You've had Roger Staubach in the rivalry for Navy. Bobby Ross coached the Army for a while, former Lions coach. And, of course, we can't forget Napoleon McCallum, one of the finer running backs that ever played the game as well. So those are a few people. With that said, the way we're going to handle this show is a lot different than most. Instead of me asking the questions, everyone on my crew is going to do it for me. Okay. And we're going to start off with Steve. All these questions are going to be directed at Bill. So Steve, you got 2 or 3 questions? The floor is yours.
You want to just take one at a time and go around the horn and just keep going?
I'll take them however you dish them out. Okay.
Yeah, because that way there, where it keeps it flowing. But, Bill, looking at the Army team this year, they had a great season. Would you think they would add any wrinkles to their offensive game on, Saturday to throw Navy off a little bit? They know they can run the ball, obviously, but do you think they'll throw some wrinkles in there in the game plan?
Well, as my I grew up in Tennessee, and my grandmother used to say, "You dance with the one who brung you." And I will say this: let me just read off some stuff. Army this year, time of possession, number 1 in the country. Turnovers lost, number 1 in the country. Passes intercepted, number 1 in the country. Red zone defense, number 1 in the country. Sacks allowed, number 2 in the country. Tackle for loss, number 2 in the country. And the list goes on and on. No, we've got a great cohesive team, and I don't think we're going to change anything because maybe a little bit in the passing game. We may see some screen passes, some tight end slants, stuff like that. But what's been working for Army this year has been working. And the main thing that's been working is Bryson Daly on the quarterback keeper. 30 touchdowns this year, number 1 rushing quarterback in the country. But I'll tell you this, a little secret to keep. I know this guy. I've met his dad. I've met his family. Number 21, Tyrell Robinson, is our kickoff returner and our punt returner. And he's as fast as a water bug on a swimming pool. And you watch him. They're going to do some stuff. 2 guys, Tyrell Robinson and number 15, Noah Short. Watch for them in the game. They're going to be the game breakers that make this thing happen. Watch for some quick passes, some wheel routes to them, something we haven't seen yet this year. And now, pretty much the same game plan, but watch 21 and 15.
Excellent.
Okay, Mel.
Mr. Crawford, do you
Now,
do you
Mel,
anticipate-
my name is Crawdad. It's not Mr. Crawford.
Well,
Mr.
I
Crawford
went to. I understand. I went to all boys Catholic school. That's just the way I was raised.
Okay, that's cool.
Anybody a few hours older than me is Mister. All right. Do you expect any extracurricular activity, any unsportsmanlike conduct penalties tomorrow with the Army playing Navy?
Well, I could say a bad word with no, but I'll just say no. And I'll tell you why that happens. Some of my experiences at West Point is, if you were a cadet at West Point and you bend the rules just a little bit, like I did on occasion, there was a gate, you could slip through it, and you have to walk punishment tours, and you have to walk them on the it's called the area, and you walk them on Saturday and you walk them on Friday afternoon and Sunday. Coach knows all about that. And if you're walking punishment tours, you lose all your privileges. So I would say this. Coach Monken is a disciplinarian without a doubt. And if somebody gets out there and acts the fool, like there's going to be no planting of the flag. There's going to be none of that nonsense because one, coach would kick their butts off the team. And number two, he'd put them on the area, have them out there with a rifle on their shoulders, walking around. I had, by the way, if you are a bad boy, I mean, bad boy at West Point, it's like being a regular frat guy at another college. And if you walk over 100 hours, you're called a century man. And I had 135, and my son and I, he's a grad too. We are combined double century man. So not many father and sons can make that claim.
Yeah.
No, so Mel, no, that ain't going to happen. In fact, there's nothing but respect between those two teams. I mean, they fight hard and they claw and scratch. By the way, just as a sidebar, the most animosity between the academy rivals is between Army
Air
and
Force.
Air Force. Bingo, you got it. That's
I
it.
hate Air Force.
Okay.
Hey, quick story. When I was going through jump school down at it was Fort Benning. Now it's Fort Moore. But we had a bunch of cadets from the Air Force Academy, and the track that the airborne guys run around after the ground week on Friday morning or Friday afternoon, they went out at night and wrote AFA on the track. And the next week, they usually PT the heck out of you. On Monday morning, the whole class got to sit in the shade and watch the Air Force cadets out there with little toothbrushes rubbing that paint off.
Great. As it should be.
As it should be.
Okay, next up is Travis.
So, Bill.
Sir.
You have an Army team that's averaging giving up 15 points a game. You have a Navy team that's scoring 32 points a game. It sounds like you got a strength versus strength kind of situation going on here. Now, I'm just questioning how is this thing going to work out. The only common opponent we really have so far, at least, is Notre Dame, who kind of dominated both teams in their individual. Oh, sorry. Well, I guess they had Air Force, yeah. In their individual matchups. So I'm kind of just curious how this thing is going to work out. Because again, as we already talked about, these are two teams who know each other very well. And it feels like it's going to be a kind of rock'em sock'em situation. But what strength do you see winning today?
Well, Travis, as they say sometimes in the military, iron sharpens iron. And you're going to have two teams that are both very good at the option offense. You're going to have Navy, who may be down to their third string quarterback. So I think it's going to come down to the quarterbacks. And I think our quarterback, Bryson Daly, is healthy as a bull. He's shown what he can do, but then again, Travis, I'll tell you this, like I said earlier, it's not going to be a high scoring game. It's going to be a low scoring game. And one other thing that a lot of people don't realize about Army is how tough our defense has been playing. And I think this game is going to come down to the last person who has the ball.
Ooh. So the low scoring game, in your opinion, that would favor Army?
I would like to think a low scoring game favors Army. It has in the past few years, but
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a good game, but I do think, to answer your question, a low scoring game is going to favor Army because we've proven that this year. And by the way, just a sidebar, strength of schedule, come on. Army's strength of schedule was equally as good as Indiana's or Boise State. Somehow the CFP just does not like military academies, and they prove that. But I'm off my soapbox on that.
All right, just answer a question from Joshua Dorr. How did I make Bill? I was covering FAU against Army, and Bill and I struck a good friendship, and he agreed to come on, and here we are. I had to find a time to bring him on, and I figured there's no better opportunity than before the Army-Navy game to bring him on, and obviously we seem to be having a good time doing it. Okay, Coach, go ahead. ask Bill a question. Then we're going to do is go around again, and everybody will have at least 2 or 3 questions for Bill, and then we'll proceed with a station break after that. Go ahead, Coach.
Sure. This one really isn't a football question, more, as a graduate and somebody that's covered Army, Navy, as long as you have, and with all the traditions that are part of that game, what's your favorite tradition when it comes to Army, Navy?
Well, let me give you my favorite memory from Army Navy, because this is a good one. When you're a plebe at West Point, like obviously everybody is, you got to take a bus down to Army Navy.
Right.
And if you've ever seen the game, we wear these long overcoats that kind of look like the witches' guards in the Wizard of Oz. and we had those things on, and they said it was going to rain that day. I, in my intimate wisdom, said, ain't going to rain. And we had this little pouch that had a raincoat in it that we had to put the raincoat in. And I said, I'm not going to do that. So I replaced my raincoat with 2 bottles of peach brandy. And and I was late for the formation, and I was running to the game as fast as I could, swinging that little thing as I was running, and the 2 bottles of peach brandy flew out of it. I could see them in slow motion twirling in the air, and they landed right at the feet of the highest ranking naval officer I've ever seen in my life. And I froze. I said, my life is over. I just died. And the naval officer looked at me and he said, "Hey, cadet, are you late for formation?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Get the hell out of here." He didn't have to tell me twice, but as far as the greatest tradition of the game, it's really simple. There's only one, and that is at the end of the game, where both of the academies sing the alma mater. Loser sings first, winner sings second.
All right, Joshua, I just want to point something out to you, that there are a lot of good questions here in the chat right now tonight, though my role is point guard. I'm distributing the football to everybody on the crew so that everybody else can ask questions. So there's no disrespect intended to the chat, but I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to talk to Bill. This is a very important football game. Okay, with that said, are there any other ones out there we want to put up there? Then we'll go round 2. Okay, go ahead, Coach.
I'll take this last the question from Blast 22 about whether the Army needs to be running the option or not. I have a strong feeling on this, if you don't mind, Bill, as a coach. I think if you look at the history of the academies going back, really it was Jim Young that brought the triple option to Army, and since that time, any and all academies, Army, Navy, and Air Force, anybody that's tried to deviate from that has not been successful. They have all been successful running triple option. I think there's a lot of reasons that go into that, but I could take up the whole show. But that was kind of my take when I saw that question.
Well, let me give my spiel on that question. First of all, if you recall last year, Coach Monken said, we got some chop block rules that have changed. We can't do the option anymore. We're going to go to more of a pro set offense. And that didn't work. And Coach, you're right. That does not work for West Point. Right. And at the Air Force game, he said, "Hey, I'm going to take the play calling responsibilities from Coach Thatcher, and I'm going to let Coach Worley take it over and go back to the option offense." And Air Force was ranked. They were undefeated. We beat the stew out of them. And ever since then, until Notre Dame, we hadn't lost. We have to run. And by the way, right now, we really don't run a triple option. We run an option offense, but it's no fake to the fullback, pitch, quarterback, whatever. It's an option offense. It works for us. That's what we have to do because of the kind of players we get. And by the way, I talked to our offensive coordinator this year when we met in person, and he said, "Hey, Bill," he said, "what we're going to do this year is we're going to pass, not because we're 3rd and 22. We're going to pass because we can." So we've had a great mixture this year, by the way, lead the country in passing efficiency, of running the option and mixing in the pass. So, Coach, you're absolutely right. That's where we need to be, and that's where we should stay.
All right, here's another question from Blows. I actually like this one too. It's intended for you, Bill. Anybody else can ask. What does Army need to elevate itself back to national relevance and possibly compete for a spot in the college football playoff. I don't know if you've already mentioned it, but now you can.
Well, I hate to say this, but as far as elevating into a spot in the college football playoff, in the current system, I don't see that happening at all, because the only way we can get in is be the highest ranked team in the group of 5. It doesn't matter if you have one loss, what your strength of schedule is. And my point on this, and I've said this on my Facebook page, I'll say it to anybody who would listen, is that there is a power football championship, and that's the one that the college football playoff is. And then there's an FCS championship. There needs to be a mid-tier championship. There's more than enough streaming TV and more than enough money to let the people who are in the group of 5, Northern Illinois, Central Michigan, Army, teams like that, let them have their own championship. And you know what? I think the fans would love it. I would love it. And I think it would. What's the big thing? Money. They'd make a heck of a lot of money. And, our chances as Army and this, are we nationally relevant now? You're damn right we are. Army has as big a fan base as anybody in the country, but can we make it into the current college football playoff? I don't know. There needs to be another championship, in my humble opinion.
So, Mr. Crawford, so what you're saying then is the Power 4 would really need to break away and just have their own championship, and then you'd have another championship for, say the group of 5.
Well, Mel, my answer to that would be yes. I think they do, and I think they're heading in that direction anyway. I would almost compare it to the NIT in basketball. Why not have a Power 4, SEC, whoever championship, and then let the middle tier teams compete for their own championship? By the way, ESPN did a bracket on this a few years ago, and it looked pretty good. It just hadn't happened yet. So, yeah, I think that could happen. And I think, would you watch it? I certainly would. And I think many people would love. There's a lot of fan bases out there who would love to see their team play in something competitive. And they know it's not going to be the mayonnaise bowl or the Duke's, fingernail pickers bowl or whatever it is. Put them in a meaningful championship series.
So you don't like the bowl structure?
No, I like the bowl structure sort of to a degree. Like for a team like Army to go to the Independence Bowl, man, it's a big deal for us. But for the rest of the teams, when they go to bowls, the Power 4 teams, when they go to bowls like Florida State, everybody didn't play last year. It doesn't mean anything. Have a mid-tier bowl structure where those teams, Northern Illinois, Central Michigan, teams of that nature, Miami of Ohio, when they go to a bowl game, it means a lot. And their fans would go and they would watch it. I'd rather see something like that on a competitive level than see somebody play a Power 5 team and all their players have bolted because they either want to go pro or they hop in the transfer portal. Right now, how many players are in the transfer portal? 3,900.
Wow.
3,900. They're not going to play in the bowl games. So, yeah, Mel, that's exactly what I think.
All right, let me put this up here from Joshua Dorr. Well, okay, it goes for you, Bill. What's the most emotional moment you've experienced watching or being a part of an Army football game? And then what we're going to do after you answer that, we're going to go to a station break, and then we're going to go to the crew, and they'll be able to ask another question or two. But what we're going to do with the crew is you can ask your final questions on the next round, and then we'll proceed accordingly. So you can ask that station break, and then everybody will have a chance to ask their final question or two, and we'll go around the horn and we'll talk more college football as well as the game of the week. Okay.
Real easy answer to that question. I was a sophomore at West Point. We played in the old JFK Stadium. We beat Navy 17-16. It was 10 degrees, and I froze my behind off, but we won. And that was, well, I can tell you this, there's been a whole lot of emotional games. We would go to the Ben Franklin Hotel as the Corps of Cadets after the game was over with and, have to catch the bus back to West Point. That's called a boomerang trip, which was not a lot of fun to do, go there and come right back. A lot of emotional moments in the Ben Franklin Hotel after the game.
All right, here's another interesting one. And now we go to the station break. Okay, question for Bill. If Army had to draft one piece of military equipment to use on the field, what would it be, and how would they use it against Navy? I don't know what it means.
Well, I will answer that with a bit of a trivia question.
Okay.
The first football helmet in the world, the first football helmet was done in 1893 by Navy midshipman Mason Reeves, later an admiral. He'd gotten kicked in the head, and his doctor said, "You're going to lose your sense if you don't do something." So he hired a shoemaker to make a helmet for him. And so that was the first helmet in Army football. And so what would be the most important piece of equipment today? I'd say make people take their helmets off and see what happens.
Here you go, Joshua. All right, now we go to the station break, and then everybody, as I mentioned, can ask their final question or two for Bill, and then we'll proceed with the other couple topics that we have. Go ahead, Candy.
Okay.
You are on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see the red subscribe button, that means you have not hit subscribe. Please do so. We have an author in the midst. His name is our host, Scott, Motor City Madmouth Morgan Roth. He wrote the book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There is a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a link to our merchandise store where you can get sweatshirts and t-shirts and hats. There's also a plethora of all kinds of other great information. We have some college football. We have some NFL football, lots of other sports. Go check it out. We actually have some pictures on there too. I don't know who would have taken those. But anyways, if you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you never know what we're going to be talking about. Sports and everything. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott, 954-304-4941. If you want to be a guest, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to the program.
All right, before I turn over to the crew, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, so I'll reiterate. So when I saw you, Bill, did you think Army would be this good of a team, an 11-1 team? I know that FAU, I don't know if that was a fair test, and of course they just recently changed coaches.
Well, honestly, I have my little radio station book here that I carry with me since day one. And my prediction at the start of the year was 10-2.
Okay.
We had a team that had gelled. It had a lot of seniors on it. And by the way, let me mention something about Scott and I meeting at FAU. I went to the game there, had a lot of friends there. We had a little reunion. The game was 108 degrees, no shade, no nothing. My wife and her brother and her sister-in-law were sitting in the stands, and they said, "Hey, guess what? We like Army, but not that much. We're gone." And so that's when I went up to the press box and met Scott.
Yeah. Hey, Josh,
and by the way, at halftime, I bet there wasn't you two. I don't know if you were still there at there wasn't 200 people in the stands. It was too hot to play football.
Well, you know where I was headed, don't you? I was headed to the Miami Hurricanes opener, so I had a double header that night. I took the first half of that game, and then I ended up going down to cover the Miami game. I had a double header. Josh, you have a great question. I need time to think about that one, so I can't give you an exact answer on that show. But he says to me, "What's the funniest, most unexpected moment you've experienced behind the microphone, and how did it shape your approach to broadcasting?" You know what? That's a loaded question, Josh. Let me think about that one and bring it up another show. I don't have an answer because we're on such a roll, but I think it's a great question, but unfortunately not for tonight. Okay, Steve, I'm going to give you the floor. You have one or two questions for Bill?
Yeah, first one, a little bit of trivia. I'm sure Bill might, and maybe even Coach Bono might know about this. The Army's first tanker helmet, when tanks first came out, in World War I, was crafted by
George Patton. George Patton.
And what did he use? He used the West Point football helmet.
That's right. Well, hey, since we're on trivia, let me give you guys a real good trivia question. If anybody knows the answer, when was instant replay first introduced in televised football?
An Army.
Had to be Army Navy game.
Hey, Mel, that was a pretty
1978.
good guess there. No, it was actually in the 1963 Army Navy game with Roger Staubach was the quarterback versus Raleigh Stickway, who was the quarterback for Army. CBS introduced it, and what happened was when they showed the play over, the station was flooded with calls because they didn't know what happened. They said, "Hey, did they score again? What's going on?" But
That's incredible.
Wow.
I like that one. Okay, that's a good one. I didn't even know that one. Can't know it all. That's why we have people like you on, where we're all learning some. All right, Steve, anything else you want to ask, Bill?
Yeah, just it's not particularly a football question, but explain to our listeners, because a lot of them aren't military or come from military families, what the whole experience in West Point did for you and how it shaped you long after you left.
Well, I can answer that as briefly as possible, and I'll tell you this: I came from a small town in Tennessee. Myself, my mother, grandfather, grandmother. My father sort of bolted when the day I was born. He was an Annapolis grad, and he said, "Nope, I don't want that kid anymore." So I went from a little small town in Tennessee to West Point. And at West Point, you bond with people up there. I met the brothers and sisters that I had never had before. And the thing, I graduated from West Point, spent a career in the military, flew about every helicopter known to man. And what that experience means to you after you graduate is, as I tell people this, I have a friend in every state of the union. I have a brother or a sister in every state of the union. And it instills the values of duty, honor, country in you that never go away. And West Point was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was the best thing I ever did. How's that for an answer?
That's a great answer. I mean, you and I are the same age, so I might have flown with you somewhere at some time.
Well, if you ever flew in the 101st or the 3rd Infantry Division, you may have.
Okay, Steve, anything else?
I'm good.
All right, Mel, you're up next.
So, Mr. Crawford, having covered Army for as long as you have, I know for me as a player, it would be somewhat intimidating for me probably to come and play one of the service academies. Now, I'm not saying that teams are intimidated by the service academy, but the offense that they run is not something that they're accustomed to seeing week in and week out. It is you have to be very, very disciplined in your assignments in order to stop that defense. Do you find that the teams that come in or their opponents that they play, because they always have pretty decent records against, teams you would think that would, they wouldn't have a chance against because, and it's not a gimmicky offense. I mean, you have to be very disciplined in what it is that you do in running that offense. And it's very precise. Do you find that teams are kind of really kind of don't want to play Army because of or the service academies because of the difficulties in facing the offense that each one of those service academies use?
Oh, let me answer that question with something that happened in the real world 3 years ago. Tennessee was scheduled to play West Point. I don't know if you recall that. And what happened was Coach Bono knows all about this story. Is Tennessee said, well, we're going to pay West Point $2 million to get out of this game because they didn't want to waste any time planning for a triple option offense when they had an SEC opponent up the next week. So, and what happened was that day at Tennessee was scheduled to be a Medal of Honor recognition ceremony at halftime where they were bringing Medal of Honor winners in. And essentially they just chickened out, Mel, to answer your question. They said, we don't want anything to do with this, Coach. You know anything about that other than, or have you heard that too, right?
I thought at first you were referring to the 1986 game when Jim Young took his team up to Neyland Stadium and beat the Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah.
in a, I think it was 25-21. I have a really good friend of mine that I coached with at the Saints, Marion Hobby, and Marion played at Tennessee. He's currently the defensive line coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. And we were sitting around one day and we were talking about that game. He obviously played in it. And he said Johnny Majors had the best quote. They're all sitting in the team room, expecting that they're going to get their butts chewed out and, not knowing what to expect. They said that Coach Majors came in and looked at his Tennessee team and he said, he said, gosh, dog it. He said, I'm sure glad those were some tough ass son of a bees, aren't they? He said, I'm sure glad they're protecting our country, aren't you? Let's get on going. And I think they were playing Mississippi the next week. He said, forget this film. We're going on to Mississippi.
But Mel, to answer your question, I think there's a lot of, you run this different offense and you have maybe 1 week to prepare for it and your scout team doesn't even know how to do it. Yeah, people don't want to play that, no doubt about it.
I mean, you look what happened with Alabama when they played Vanderbilt.
On top of that, you've got, 11 guys on the field that are just absolutely going to.
Yeah, they're maniacs.
They have zero quit in them. And They will, they are going to play through the echo of the whistle every single play. They're not going to, they're not going to make very many mistakes where they beat themselves. And they, I think the option allows them to do that, allows them to play to their strengths.
Well, hey, let me say one thing before we get off this. And I know, Scott, we've got to go to other topics, but I want to give a lot of credit to Coach Jeff Monken because he has changed the culture at West Point. He has really set the stage up there. He's not just a football coach. He's a leader. He's a good example for the cadets, and I have the most admiration for him. And I know everybody's going to come after him because we did well. He's mentioned by everybody, but Jeff Monken is a big reason for our success at West Point. So,
Bill, you must be psychic. That was literally my question coming up next. Was how nervous were you that someone's going to snatch him up? Like he's mentioned in all the coaching searches right now.
Well, when he first got hired as the coach, there were two candidates for the coaching job. One was Ben Kowika, who was the special teams coach for the Redskins at the time. And then there was Jeff Monken, who was the head coach at Georgia Southern. And myself and all my co-hosts said, oh, man, we want a West Point guy. And the chief of staff of the Army, General Ray Odierno, got together with the superintendent and they interviewed the coaching candidates and they said, Monken is the guy we want. And we were going, you got to be kidding me. They turned down a West Point grad for this guy. Turned out he was the right coach. And I tend to think, I know Coach Monken. I've interviewed him quite a few times. I think he is totally satisfied to be at West Point. He lives right by the stadium. He walks to work. He is the embodiment of the West Point ideals. And plus, he's not known as a coach of anything other than, from Georgia Southern and West Point. He's an option guy. And there's not a lot of people in the football world who want that, though. I will tell you this: he could coach anything. He could coach a dog to do. He could coach my dachshund to do backflips.
So, Mel, you got everything out that you wanted to say? You're good, Mel.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, Travis.
Yes, sir.
Anything else you want to add, Travis?
Oh, no, I mean, for the most part, that was my biggest one. I mean, I keep hearing his name mentioned. Like he's mentioning that whole conversation. What happens if the Bill Belichick thing doesn't go through? Maybe they go the Monken route or West Virginia or all these other squads. So that's truly is my big one in this day and age of big college football and big money. What's the concern level of a winning coach that just they win their conference? He's reshaped the organization. All the kudos you just gave him, basically. Yeah, where's that concern level? That's it.
Well, hey, Travis, I'll tell you, my biggest concern is not with Coach Monken, but it's with three other coaches on that staff. One, defensive coordinator Nate Woody. Somebody's going to come after him. Offensive coordinator Cody Worley. Somebody's going to come after him. And especially our special team coach, Sean Saturnio. I don't know if you watched ESPN Game Day couple of weeks ago before we played Notre Dame, and they did a special on Sean. Somebody's going to snatch those three up, and they are great. They are very valuable to our team.
Well, special teams coordinators that coach at Army end up doing great things in their careers. So,
yeah, like you.
Hey, Scott,
I had two titles my whole time there, Bill. I was the special teams coordinator and the recruiting coordinator. Those were big jobs. I did not take a vacation until I had been at. I didn't take a vacation. I'd been at Army for like 4 years before I took a vacation. Because just for our audience and stuff, the freshman class shows up right before the 4th of July on our day, and someone has to be around, when those kids come up the hill, and we would get them for a couple hours a day. And as a recruiting coordinator, I was the one person that they all knew and that knew all of them. So I just never felt like I could had an opportunity to get away. But I tell you what, I loved it. It was a great time of my life.
Oh, my son, by the way, played 150s up there, sprint football. So
another great tradition.
Yeah, for those who don't know what sprint football is, just briefly, there's a league called the Collegiate Sprint Football League. It's on the East Coast. Now it's moving into the Midwest. Regular college football, 11 on 11, is not touch tag. It's regular tackle football. The only difference is you can't weigh more than 178 pounds. It's some of the best football you have ever seen. An offensive tackle can run down a wide receiver.
Wow.
Scott, all right, when you were introing, the big names in Army, Navy, and all that, you forgot a really big one, Bill Parcells.
Well, I was about to get to that toward the end, but I've been deferring to everybody first. I have a question or two at the end. I'm waiting to take my turn so I can defer to you guys.
How about Vince Lombardi?
Well, hold on. I haven't finished yet. Okay, you guys. I'm trying to be the point guard so everybody gets their piece of the action. But the point guard here is about to be the shooting guard in a minute. So, Coach, anything else you want to go ahead and add, or
yeah, that's mine now? There's a, and I know Bill knows this, but there's a row of houses on West Point. It's called Bartlett Loop, and one of the perks of the job when you get hired as an assistant at West Point is you get on-campus housing, and these houses have all been in the athletic department for decades. And one of the cool things is we all know, when you live in 1010B Bartlett Loop, which was my house. That's the same house that Vince Lombardi lived in. And I remember one time when Coach Parcells was at the Jets, a few of us went to watch a OTA practice. He saw us wearing our Army gear, and he just, Bill just yells over, "Hey guys, which one of you guys lives in 1008A?" That was his house. So,
well, hey, Coach, let me mention one.
That's when he was coaching there.
Yeah, when he was an assistant there. Yep.
One thing about Vince Lombardi, a lot of people don't know, but Vince has always, even when he was with the Green Bay Packers, he had a clause in his contract that said, if I get offered the head coaching job at West Point, I can leave without any financial penalty. Yeah, he loved it up there. He wanted to be the head coach.
All right, so let me go over a couple things here. I told you, Bill, I had a great crew. I wasn't gonna have to work that much at all tonight. And I'll tell you what, these guys have made me look like a genius here. I'm gonna play the name game now, though. I am gonna play the name game. We talk about Vince Lombardi. All right, how much high regard is he still with his presence felt over on West Point, even to this day?
Well, I can tell you this. There's a, and I'm a perfect example. I don't have it on, but there's a, famous picture of Vince Lombardi in a West Point sweatshirt with West Point on it, and they reproduced that last year. I bought one. They sold out thousands of them in 10 minutes. So, and I think that gives you kind of an idea of what Vince Lombardi has thought about at West Point. So,
All right, let's go to Bill Parcells.
not so much so. Not so
Well,
much so.
really wasn't there. I think
He
it
was only there
one
1 year. Yeah.
Yeah, 1 year.
Okay, all right. Let me continue on, Coach. All right, let's talk. Let's change sports a little bit. Bobby Knight.
Bobby Knight, very much in high regard. Okay, he was there right before Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, and
Right.
ultimate high regard for Coach K. In fact, when I was a little plebe, a beanhead as they called us, I was walking around one day lost like a deer in the headlights, and Coach K stopped me, talked to me, was very nice to me, and I'm going, man, if he's nice to a little idiotic plebe like me, what's he like to the rest of the people in the academy? Keep dropping names, Scott. I'm all ready.
I'll worry. Hey, listen, I'm letting these guys do what they got to do, but then ultimately the point guard becomes a shooting guard. That's how this game works here. So I'll go back to the chat room. I have to give everybody their piece of the action. Jay says the Army football team has 29 seniors. The total team's roster includes 183 players, 52 sophomores, 29 juniors. A little bit of information out there. All right, Joshua Doerr's been active. At least tonight he's been active for all the right reasons. Okay. For a coach looking back, was there a particular game, season, or coaching decision that you feel defined your career or your coaching philosophy?
Well, I think a lot of my philosophy was formed during the time that I was coaching for Coach Sutton at West Point. It was such a incredible laboratory, especially as a special teams coach. I mean, when you have 180 plus players on the field and practicing, you know, it's hard for the average person to conceptualize how that looks. You know, how do you have a 180 man roster and you don't have a million people standing around? And I think, you know, if you go watch Army practice, it's incredibly efficient and everybody's moving and everybody's doing something. And, you know, your first team, your second team, your third team would get just the same amount of reps because it was rapid fire. But it was a great laboratory. I could go on for hours and hours answering that question.
All right, so I want to let everybody know that this broadcast is not only being played live on YouTube and Facebook, but it's also on iHeartRadio as well, Spotify, Apple on the audio side, which is why some of these things that we're actually going to read. Go ahead. I just want to make sure those individuals that are listening only will have the opportunity to hear it as well as see it. Go ahead, Bill. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to make sure we got that out there.
Well, two things, Scott. One is I know you guys think I'm the shell answer man about Army football, but if you ever want to have me back, I'm just as good about pro baseball, pro football.
Well, I plan on it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Don't never play me in Trivial Pursuit on sports.
I got a show. I have a lot of shows. This is just as Karen Carpenter would say, we've only just begun, although my voice is a whole lot deeper than hers.
One thing I'd like to say, because your listeners may be interested in this, and that is, what does Army think about not being able to do the transfer portal or name, image, and likeness? Right. They can't do NIL because, you know, they're federal employees and they're not allowed to do that. But the transfer portal, you can't come into the transfer portal because you have to get an appointment to West Point. But Mike Buddy, who is our athletic director, here's what he said about the transfer portal at West Point. Is he said, when you're relying on the transfer portal, what happens at West Point is we recruit these players from 8th grade on. We recruit their families, and I know Coach Bono knows this. We recruit their families, their coaches, their principals, their preachers, everybody, and we know what we have when we get them. And Mike Buddy said, when you're relying on the transfer portal, you may have 2 days to make a decision, and all you're making it on is numbers and stats. And he said, I would not want to have a bunch of folks who are physically superior but competitively inferior. And I think that's one of the most intelligent quotes I've ever heard about NIL and the transfer portal.
Now, I know everybody in the chat room will be delighted when I say that, Phil, I plan to bring you back plenty. Don't worry. We just want to make sure your coming out party was before the Army-Navy game for sure. All right, well, Candy Ebling obviously has a load here. So why don't you go out there and read this whole thing here? That'll give my voice a break, and we'll go to a Joshua Door comment. Then we're going to move on to some other college football. So, Candy, since you put it in the chat, now you get to read it all.
Army versus Navy fun facts. Presidential attendance. U.S. presidents frequently attend the Army-Navy game, beginning with Theodore Roosevelt in 1901. The event has become a platform for the commander-in-chief to address the academies and witness the rivalry firsthand. Heisman connections. Both academies boast Heisman Trophy winners. Army's Glenn Davis and Doc Blanchard, known as Mr. Inside and Mr. Outside, won the award in 1946 and 1945, respectively, while Navy's Roger Staubach earned it in 1963.
Great
We
trivia
missed,
there.
we missed one, Candy. Pete Dawkins also is a Heisman Trophy winner for Army.
Okay.
All right, Candy,
Good
put Joshua Door's comment up above, below that, because this one's in it for Coach Bono. Then we're going to talk about the first group of college teams that'll be playing shortly. Go ahead. This is for you, Coach.
Well, that's a great question, Joshua, and I don't know that there's enough time again.
See, there's a little bit of mentorship involved with this guy, with me to him. If you only knew what I did behind the scenes with these guys, you realize they've come a long way from food questions to this. I mean, these guys.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, you know, the leadership drips out of the very, stones in the walls at West Point. It's a humbling, it's humbling when you get there, when you realize the history and the tradition, not just of the football program, but the entire institution. I mean, you're talking about, MacArthur, Patton, Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee. There's a poster at West Point that has a lot of those generals on it, and it says a lot of the history that we teach is about the people that we taught, and that pretty much sums up the West Point experience.
I believe we got to your last question, Joshua. Richard Lane, Night Train Lane Jr. here, go Army. Shout out to my old friend Melfar Jr. Your dad was a great friend of our family. Great stuff. Okay. All right. So everybody, have you gotten everything out there about the Army Navy? It's all out there for everybody to hear, listen, and all that good stuff. All right. Now we're going to go on to a few college football games. The first games will be played soon. I'm only going to ask for basic predictions, and we're going to have the pro football game that you're looking forward to. Steve, I'll give you 4 games. Just pick a winner. You don't have to give me points or reasons. Clemson, Texas. Who do you got?
Texas.
Okay. Tennessee, Ohio State.
Ohio State.
SMU, Penn State.
Penn State.
Indiana, Notre Dame.
I'm going to go Notre Dame.
Okay. And Josh, I'm not worried about hockey tonight. If I get a chance, fine, but that's okay. There's other times to do it. All right, Mel, the games. We got Clemson, Texas.
Texas.
Tennessee, Ohio State.
Ohio State.
SMU, Penn State.
And look, that pained me to say that too. I want you to understand that. That pained me to say Ohio State. All right, what's the next game you said? I'm sorry.
Well, I said SMU, Penn State. Did you answer that one, or are you trying to
Penn
pull a
State.
Perry Sanders? Okay.
Penn State.
Indiana, Notre Dame.
I'm going with Notre Dame.
Okay. Travis, you're up.
Okay.
All right. Clemson, Texas.
I'm actually going Clemson.
Okay. Tennessee, Ohio State.
Ohio State.
SMU, Penn State.
Penn State.
Indiana, Notre Dame.
And Notre Dame.
Okay. Coach, I'll go over them all for you, and then I'll even have a pick after I go follow Bill. Okay. Clemson, Texas.
I'm taking Texas.
Tennessee, Ohio State.
Ohio State,
SMU, Penn State.
Penn State because of the cold.
Okay. Indiana, Notre Dame.
I'm going to take Indiana on this one.
All right, Bill, you're next.
Ready, willing, and able.
Okay. Clemson, Texas.
Texas will beat the pretender who doesn't need to be there in the first place.
Okay. Tennessee, Ohio State.
Tennessee in an upset with the quarterback whose name I've never been able to pronounce.
Okay. SMU, Penn State.
Oh, Penn State beating another team that has no business being there.
Okay. Indiana, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame beating another team that has absolutely no business whatsoever being in the playoff.
Okay. All right. I'll go out there and give you mine. Texas for sure. You know what? I'm going with Tennessee. Not right now, as far as Mr. Day is concerned. It's not a Ryan Day to me. It's not a good. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes right now after losing to Michigan. So I'm going to go Tennessee. I'm going with SMU to beat Penn State. I think Penn State is a fraud. I really do. I'm going with the Ponies and the Mustangs. I'll be the different one who's not afraid to stand out in this one. Indiana, Notre Dame. Indiana over Notre Dame. They haven't played each other since 1991. All right, the NFL game that everybody's looking forward to. Steve, go ahead.
Buffalo, Detroit.
Okay, who do you got?
I don't, this is a tough one. I think Detroit's kind of banged up right now. They have a lot of injuries. I'm going to go with Buffalo in this one.
All right, you know what? For my conscience purposes, Bill, are you a hockey fan?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I watched believe it or not, hockey is one of the most popular sports in Huntsville, Alabama. We have a minor league team, the Huntsville Havoc. They're on a string of almost 40-plus sellouts. And I don't know what the hell's going on out there, but the beer's cold and the hot dogs are good. So I'm a fan.
Okay, good enough for me. All right, Joshua, you feel better? Okay. Therefore, I don't have to deal with you on a FaceTime because I didn't ask that question. So there you go. Chillax. But your questions have been good tonight, Joshua. Positive reinforcement. Okay. The game you're looking forward to, Mel?
Buffalo and Detroit, obviously, but I'm also looking forward to Pittsburgh and Philadelphia.
Okay. Travis?
Yeah, I was probably going to lean with one of those two games, but because they said it, I'll just go with the Bucks versus the Chargers. I think that's a solid option also. Two teams kind of just fighting it out. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Liam Cohen has. Seeing that the Jaguars more than likely will be firing their coach, so maybe Liam Cohen might be that guy for Jacksonville. Let's see what he's going to put out there.
All right, Coach. You know the question.
I'm anxious to see the Jets and the Jags play.
Okay.
I'm a glutton for
You are not. You lie.
You'll probably be the only one watching that game.
No, the game of the week to me is Buffalo Detroit. I'm leaning towards Detroit. I think it'll be a good game. I'm concerned about Buffalo's defense on turf indoors. They just did not look good against the Rams. I thought the Rams kind of moved the ball at will against them. Also, I think the Bills have some issues in the kicking game that was on display where in last week's game with the Rams. And Detroit's very, very strong in that area. So I'm going to give the edge to the Lions.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Hey, I'm looking forward to the Battle of Pennsylvania. I really think that I want to see let's see who's for real. Is Pittsburgh for real or is Pennsylvania for real? Saquon Barkley versus Najee Harris, Russell Wilson versus Jalen Hurts. I don't know who's going to win that game, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I'm giving the edge to the Eagles. I think Jalen Hurts is going to show why they paid him the big money.
All right, the game I'm looking forward to, obviously, the Lions and the Bills. CBS thinks enough of it that they're going to send their pregame crew out there in advance of the game. Then they're going to do live stuff from Detroit. What I really enjoyed about Sunday was, say what you want on football. I haven't played the game, but I've done just about everything with it that you can. But I was watching the Rams in Buffalo, and I saw that Buffalo got exposed a lot. Of course, then again, Matthew Stafford will expose a lot of people anyways. So that's what makes me think that with the Lions having a multiple amount of weapons both on the ground and in the air, You wonder what they'll do to that Buffalo defense as well. Am I going to pick for a winner? No, I want to say that my heart leads with the Lions. I'll go with that, but that's the game of the week. So, all right, one segment that we have here, okay, that I do have time because we're moving along much better now, is this parting shots. Okay, Steve, do you have any parting shots real quick? Anything you want to get off your chest real quickly?
No, I mean, we talked about the stuff I'm interested in this week. I will say my prediction for Army Navy is Army 24, Navy 13.
Okay. All right, Mel, you have a parting shot?
Not today.
Okay. All right, Travis? I thought you were going to go out there and talk about UCLA and that coaching change with Eric Bieniemy. You disappointed me. I thought you were going to go there. Okay, no problem. Go on, Travis.
Oh, nothing. I've just enjoyed watching this Aaron Rodgers season for the Jets. That for me just makes my day. I mean, misery loves company, and yeah, that is it. Just watching him go straight isolation on every pass play, and no matter who your OC is, they always suck because it's you. The problem's you at quarterback, and I just think that's amazing. It's an amazing fall. So yeah, for the most part, that's my parting shot is yes. All of this, and I am looking forward to that Netflix special. Just all of the nonsense.
All right, Coach, you have a parting shot?
Yeah, my parting shot is with the transfer portal and the 3,900 players that are in it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts about the Florida State offensive and defensive coordinator? I got to go out there and mention it to you because you're Florida State's biggest fan on the show.
Well, I don't really follow them, so I don't even. I don't follow 1 and 2 and 10 teams. So.
You should have saw some of his early tape, Bill, the way he chewed up the Seminoles. You know what, though, Travis, while I have you on, I'm going to ask you out there, what are your thoughts about the Scott Frost hire over at Central Florida?
Well, I mean, my first thought about Gus Malzahn stepping down from being a head coach to now being an offensive coordinator at a 2 and 10 team is, boy, that was odd. Just in and of itself, I thought that was strange. But also, the Scott Frost thing is interesting because I know I'm supposed to love it, and I'm kind of just on that fence. I'm going to lean to being positive. I'm going to err on the side of being positive for the moment because I'm not generally a fan of the nostalgia as far as all of that, like those types of hires because it worked previously. I'm not 100% sure if he's one of those guys that was just right time, right person, right time after seeing what happened in Nebraska and everything else. So I'm on that fence basically. That's kind of where I am. We'll see what happens with it though. But he's making some solid decisions with Mackenzie Milton coming back. So we'll see what happens in the next few weeks.
All right. As far as the Army Navy prediction, I'm going Army all the way. I have to. My dad was in the service, and I have the utmost respect for what they're building there with that program. They're doing an unbelievable job. Smash mouth football, the way they run the football, they do a lot of things right there, Jeff Bonkin. But my biggest thing I want to say is I want to thank Bill Crawford for joining us on Inside the Pigskin because, when we talked about doing this, said, you know what, Bill, I got a great group of guys I want you to meet, and you were obviously patient enough, and I'm glad we worked it out, but we're not done with you yet. Okay, this is just the appetizer. Wait till we get to the main course. Well, actually, we gave you the main course early. It's just a dessert and all that. Screw the food analogies. Really? Seriously, those are my 2 favorite words these days. But Candy's going to take us home for one more.
Well, can I get a parting shot in?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I didn't get a parting shot. My parting shot is this: 14 years ago, I went and knocked on the radio station's door and said, you guys here in Huntsville need to cover Army football because they're a military town. And they said, we'll do it, but we want somebody to host a pregame show. And I said, well, that'll be me. 14 years later, we're still on the air. We don't take a salary. We do it for the love of Army football. We have almost 6,000 followers on our Facebook page, Crawdad's Countdown to Kickoff. It's more than Army football. It's everything Army sports. If you want to join, go ahead and friend the page and tell the admin you heard me on this show. And I have enjoyed being here, and I hope to come back again to extend you some of my prolific knowledge about other sports. And I'll leave you guys with a trivia question. Somebody can look it up.
Well, let me say this. That was going to be a given at the end. You use it as a parting shot. I use it as a promotional tool, but I'm glad you mentioned it. But you fell into the GMTA category. Great minds think alike. So that wasn't a parting shot. That was promotional. Parting shot is when you want to take somebody and take them where the sun doesn't shine. But I'm glad you got that info. Continue on.
All right, here's my trivia question, maybe for the next show. Name the only person to catch a touchdown pass off Y.A. Tittle and hit a home run off Sandy Koufax. That's a good one, isn't it?
Hey, Greenberg?
No. I'm not going to answer it now. I'm going to have to answer it the next time I come back.
Well, you know what? It may be sooner than you think. When I tell these guys that you're coming back, I guarantee you, Coach Bono will be out there with that big thumbs up quick. Travis, and we got to go. The only one that missed it is Bo. We'll bring him on next time. But we gotta have 9 million people to listen to you. You're a blast anyway.
Well, hey, let me answer the trivia question because it's not fair to leave people hanging. But
they do it with soap operas. So what's the difference? Go ahead.
It was Alvin Dark. He caught a touchdown pass off Y.A. Tittle at LSU, and he had a home run off Sandy Koufax in the major leagues.
Yeah, as a former manager for the Oakland A's, right? Years ago.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that. I have 186 baseball talk. I'll be bringing you on that show too. I do some great things with that show. Let me tell you, we had some great numbers off the Juan Soto number yesterday. This guy, don't worry, we'll be talking a lot. I'm going to be writing down all the different things you do because now that you've got a piece of this action tonight, there'll be plenty of Bill Crawford to go around on this network. Mark my word. All because I went to a football game and did a doubleheader and caught you the first half and then did double duty that night. Tell you one of the most active chat rooms. And I will say this before you hop off, Bill. These guys in the chat room, they were salivating. So I'll let shows go longer when the questions are of quality that they are. And it was a great all-around effort by everybody from the chat room and the crew. And this is one of those things where I take Travis's own advice, right, Travis? He once said, don't be afraid to be a point guard. And I told you, Travis, I will do that from time to time. And there's no opportunity and to go out there and give credit where it's due with Travis Holmes, where I followed my colleagues' advice that this was the perfect time to utilize that strategy because I got a bunch of stars on this show. I'm not it. You guys are. That's all I can say there. So with that said, Bill, you want to hang around for one more station break with Candy so you can see my book, and then we'll let you get going?
Absolutely. I'm fine.
All right, go ahead, Candy. Take it away. One more station break.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. If you see that red subscribe button, please hit it. Like us, share us with all your friends and family. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights is football. Wednesday and Thursday nights on Sports Exchange and Fire Up, respectively. You never know what sports we're going to be talking about. We've talked about everything from sandpit volleyball to hot dog eating contest and everything in between. But the host of this show wrote a book late last year called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. Get your copy today, and better yet, get a copy for a friend. It's the season of gifting. It talks about Scott's 40 plus years in the media industry and how it has changed. Old school media versus new school media. Lots of stories. Can't imagine Scott being a good storyteller, could you? I mean, come on. He likes to talk. Go get the book and read it. It's a great read. There's also a link on our website where there's also a link to our merchandise store where you can get hats, sweatshirts, t-shirts for South Florida Tribune. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Scott writes, I take pictures, a lot of other interesting information on the website. Go check it out. If you want to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. You want to listen to our podcast, you can get them wherever you like to get your podcast. If you want to be a guest on a show or have a show idea, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Twitter is @TribuneSouth. Back to you, Scott.
All right, well, let me go out there and address everybody around the horn real quickly. Steve, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, @SteveB7SFG. Also, all of the other social media at Steve Balistreri. Write for PatsFans.com and do a podcast called Patriots 4th and 2.
I see, Bill, you're making a lot of friends tonight. Mel Farr, go ahead. Provide your information.
Yeah, you can catch me on all the social media, just like it says there at Mel Farr Jr. And follow what we have going on here in Atlanta and also up in Michigan for the youth at melfarsuperstarfoundation.org.
Okay, Travis, you're up.
Hey, you can find my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars, bigcatcountry.com. You can follow me on all the socials, X, Blue Sky, if you fancy, Facebook, all the socials. But as always, fellas, thank you for having me. It's been a great show, and go Jaguars, even when they're not good.
It's okay. You're a trooper. You're staying with them, and the Jaguars have meant a lot to me over the years too. Being able to cover and meet people like you and a lot of people I've met, I have nothing but the utmost respect for that organization. Coach has the easiest contact information of them all. Go ahead.
Yep, you can find me here on every Tuesday night with Bo on Wednesdays on Coach's Corner, and you can find me on none of the social media platforms because I'm not on any of them other than LinkedIn, and that's by design and the way I like it. So, go Army, beat Navy. Let's sing second.
All right, and you know what, Bill? In the spirit of what a parting shot is versus what a promo is, you guess what? And since you're the one who told me where instant replay came from, you get to do it again. How's that sound? And let everybody know all your platforms before you do that great show. Guys from Bo, who is obviously, you'll meet him eventually next. He's one of our colleagues as well. He was just tied up on some other business. So, Bill, this isn't a parting shot. This is a promo. You get to do it again. Let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
Well, I don't have all the social media platforms. I just have one, and that is our Facebook page, and it's Crawdads Countdown to Kickoff.com. If you friend that on Facebook, you'll be asked a couple of questions because we don't want kooks and nuts on there. Let our admin know that you heard me on this show, and he will let you in. 6,000 plus followers. It's everything about Army football and Army sports, Army everything that you would like to know. Again, I'm not a professional. I didn't sleep in a Motel 6 last night or a Holiday Inn Express or whatever. I do this just because I like to, because I love Army football. By the way, my Army football career ended real quickly. We had Coach Bono knows what this is. We had a forced march when I was a plebe one night on summer training, 40-pound ruck overnight, showed up the next day for football tryouts. Couldn't even hardly walk, was a defensive back who ran a 5'8", 40-yard dash. They told me, go find out where they play intramural football. So, but I've always loved Army football. I think it's the last true bastion of real live college football where they're just football players and not paid athletes. Love to have you on our Facebook page. Scott, thank you for the invite to come here tonight. And I'll tell you this is how I end every radio show that I do here in Huntsville, Alabama, is I say this, and I really mean it. I say this little saying: no matter where you are and no matter what you're doing, somewhere in the world, there's a soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, member of the Coast Guard, or merchant Marine who's standing a watch so you can enjoy the life you do in this great country. And then I say, go Army, beat Navy.
There you go. And by the way, Bill, just so you know, I'm counting on you, since I have Army Navy on my bucket list, to help me get it done so we can cover that game together as well. How does that sound? All right?
Hey, let's rock and roll.
We'll do it. So meanwhile, I'll leave it on Bill's incredible note. So on behalf of Coach Bono, Steve Ballesteri, Mel Farr Jr., Bill Crawford, Travis Holmes, and of course our silent partner Bo, and everybody, and Candy Epling and everybody in the chat room, I want to thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. We'll be back on next Tuesday night. Meanwhile, everybody have a great week and enjoy the Army Navy football game, a tradition like no other. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and we will catch you on the next episode of Inside the Pigskin with the Motor City Madmouth. Good night, everybody.
Good night.